Hi, and welcome back to the Grindhouse Girls podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Katie. My co-host is Brittany, and this is a podcast about many strange and spoopy movies. We cover a lot of independent movies and a lot of horror movies, and we do want to caution before starting the podcast that listener discretion is advised, and a lot of subject matter we cover is not appropriate for children and can be quite sensitive. So if that sounds like something that's up your alley, keep on listening. If not, thanks for stopping by. And on to the podcast. Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Brittany.
And this is the Grindhouse Girls podcast, number 6, I think we're on.
I think we are.
5. We're 5 or 6. This week, we watched a French movie called Climax, which isn't as sexual as the name makes you think it is. It's very dramatically different movie than most things that I watch. How have you been, Brittany? How's your week been?
It's been okay. As with most of the nation, we're still under quarantine. So laying low, staying safe. How about you, Katie? How's your week been?
I'm good. I've been playing Animal Crossing a lot. I got a bigger house. There was a toucan or pelican, not sure which one, washed up on my beach this morning that I woke up. I wasn't sure if he was drunk or not. It was very weird. Animal Crossing is a very weird and lovable game. Yeah, and I set up a backdrop so no one had to see my ugly extra room with a bunch of boxes in the background anymore. So I'm feeling like a real YouTuber. I'm like, I could be a Twitch streamer now. I'm just kidding. But yeah.
Okay, that's really cute for sure. As everyone can see, I just still have the bed in the background. Occasionally you'll see a dog or a cat laying on it, but
I mean, the pets make it okay. So
yeah,
and your bed is made though. It's not like your bed's not made, you know.
So the thing is, before I actually hopped on the call with you, two things I kind of do, letting you in on a secret. I usually brush my teeth because I just want to have fresh breath, even though you can't smell my breath. It's something that I think about. And then I make the bed, but the dogs make it. So I usually end up making the bed 5 times before I hop on the call with you.
So we are talking about Climax. I chose this movie, so whoever chooses the movie, we're trying to let kind of lead the discussion. So we each get an equal turn, because that's another thing we both noticed. I was like, yeah, like sometimes it's all one person talking and mostly me because I talk too much. So we're gonna start with
I don't judge. I said I talk a lot. I said I talk a lot too, so I do not judge. So
no judgment, just the truth. So Climax is a French movie. Which honestly, I didn't realize it was French until I watched it for the first time. Because I had just heard it was a very interesting film, and I was just curious. I had a lot of critics that I listened to, like yourmoviesucks.org and I think Ralph the Movie Maker. I think one or both of them talked about it, or they might have talked about it on Sir Donacast, and I was curious about it. So basically, it's a pretty simple premise. It's set in the mid-90s, 1996, in France, and it's loosely based on an urban legend where a group of dancers, they're gathering to put some choreography together before they go on tour in France and the U.S., and they're at an abandoned school in the middle of rural France, so kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's snowing. And the last night they're there, somebody spikes the sangria with LSD, and chaos ensues. That's basically it. It turns into a nightmare after that. There's a lot of people in this movie, right, Brittany?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I watched it once just to watch it a couple weeks ago, and then I rewatched it the other night because I wanted to get everybody straight. And the beautiful thing about Amazon Prime, I don't know if it does this on everything, but if you have a Kindle, It's linked to IMDb, and so it'll give you trivia while you're watching it and also tell you who's on screen, which I love. So the way they cast this movie is it's about dancers, so pretty much everybody but one actor is a dancer primarily and an actor second. Like, they're not really trained actors. So a lot of them, it's kind of like a chorus line, honestly. If you know anything about a chorus line, the musical, they basically workshopped this musical where they had real dancers kind of tell their life stories, and then they turned it into a play about the audition process. Oh my God, Riley has a bow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute.
Thank you.
If you're listening, Brittany's dog Riley has a tiny little bow tie, and now he just jumped on the bed. It's cute. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by adorable puppies. So basically, they had a 5-page script for the entire movie, and the movie's a good 2 hours, almost 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It moves faster than I thought it. The second time I watched it, it moves really fast. The first time I watched it, when you hear about the premise, I feel like everybody's like waiting for that to happen. So if you go in blindly, I feel like it would move a lot faster. Anyways, talking about getting sidetracked. Anyways, so basically, when I was watching it on Amazon Prime, I was trying to get everybody's names straight, but whoever did the editing for that or that kind of programming had all the character names as the actors' first names, no matter what. And that's not always what happens. Like, some of them have their actors' first names as their character names, and some of them don't. And so I guess somebody got real lazy or confused at IMDb, and so I was getting confused. So I'm hoping I'm referring to everyone by the correct name. The first few I'm pretty confident about, and then I get really confused about. And then also the director of this movie is Gaspar Noe, and he only does like his own movies. I think he has done other people's products in the past, but it sounds like all of his movies he comes up with, he writes. And he did Enter the Void, which I haven't watched yet, but I heard was very good. Which is like about the afterlife.
But I'm gonna real quick, just because Enter the Void is on so many. So if you're watching, I'm a huge movie list person, where it's like the top 10 surrealist movies you must see are this. And with Enter the Void, it's the guy is very early on bleeding to death, and he kind of has an out of body experience, and it goes back and forth through his life. So it's actually loosely based on this book about the afterlife. So yeah, but when you usually hear Gaspar's name, you hear Enter the Void and you hear Irreversible.
Yeah, isn't Irreversible the one we talked about when we were talking about something else, like one of our first episodes? Which I feel like we should watch that one too. Yeah. But I couldn't find it on streaming. Irreversible. But this one's on Amazon Prime right now. Also, his movie Love is on Amazon Prime. Which, do you know about Love?
Oh yeah,
the movie. Have you watched it?
I haven't, but I mean,
I haven't either. It's on Netflix. I didn't know it was going to be on Netflix, but apparently it is on Netflix, and I was tempted to watch it, and I was like, I don't think I can.
I mean, the thing is with all Gaspar Noé's films, and we'll touch more on his films later a little bit, but he usually, I hate to use this word, but it's very infamous. He usually has moments in his films that they'll latch onto one thing that happens in the movie because it's so kind of infamous.
I read somewhere, I think it was like on Wikipedia or IMDb, that he basically, when he was interviewed about like what do you want the audience to feel when they watch Climax, he was like, I don't give a flip what they think. I was like, okay, so he makes art to make art. It's it's a little bit like David Lynch, but more FU to the audience. Like, he doesn't care if you hate his movie, which in some ways makes him a very good filmmaker. But in other ways, it's kind of aggressive. And Love is this movie where, the plot really doesn't matter. It's basically just an exploration of voyeurism of a relationship. And there's like a main couple, and they start a relationship with a much younger woman. So there's they're basically like in a throuple, and the guy's like just thinking about when they were a throuple after the fact that their relationship's over. And like the thing that I heard was, and I haven't watched it yet because I just don't want to see this. There's unstimulated sex. So real sex, it's basically a pornographic movie because he asked all the actors to actually have sex on camera, which if they're all cool with that, that is fine. This isn't a Last Tango in Paris butter situation.
Yes.
Which I feel like everybody knows about that. If you don't, we'll have to watch Last Tango in Paris and talk about it. Because that's one where I've seen parts of it, but I haven't seen all of it, but I know about it. It's kind of like I've always wanted to watch Lolita, but I can never find it. So that's another one where I've been like, I'm just curious. Anyways, so everybody was okay with having sex on camera. Very similar to, what is his name? He did
Lars
von Trier. Yeah, he made Shia LaBeouf and a bunch of other people in Nymphomaniac have sex on camera. It's not even like a moral thing. I'm just saying, like, if you're forcing somebody, a la The Last Tango in Paris, to do something they're uncomfortable doing on camera, that crosses a line. I'm not a fan of that. But if everybody's on board, I'm like, I can't really tell you what to do. You're adults. But there's also, he decided to do the movie in 3D.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't really need like dicks and vaginas 3D in my face. Like, sorry, I don't need that. So he's a.
Oh, no, I was about to say, it's not just, and of course, like dicks and vaginas, but it's also 3D ejaculation. So.
Yes. That was the other part. Oh, please talk about it.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean, I feel bad because once again, when his movies get brought up, there's usually certain things. And Poor Love as a movie, I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about the plot other than, of course, what you told me about it being, a threesome relationship. But I can tell you about the 3D ejaculation with no issues.
I get why people. I mean, it does get people talking about your movie. But why are people talking about your movie because they think it's good, or is it just because it's got this weird catch? And he's kind of one of these directors where I feel like he just likes to be weird for the sake of weird. I mean, he has some stuff to say, but I feel like he likes to give a little F you to the audience. So I guess before we get into spoilers about what Climax is about, let's say if we would recommend seeing it. Brittany, would you recommend people to see this movie?
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna have a two-sided thing to that. Yes, I would recommend it, but no, but at the same time, I did not like the movie. I would recommend it because I feel like if you're not seeing movies that you don't like, you're probably not watching enough movies. And with that being said, I mean, the thing I can say about this film is that it's a different type of filmmaking. So it's very experimental. There's a lot of improv. Like you said, there wasn't a real script. He kind of gave actors like a suggestion and let them run with it. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that it's very unique filmmaking. And I think that's a enjoyable experience to watch something unfold in such an organic way. But at the same time, it's so hellish. I felt very anxious the whole time I was watching it. I felt like I was about to have like a bit of an anxiety attack, and I don't enjoy feeling that when I'm watching movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a very similar opinion about it. I would not suggest if you find The Shining scary, don't watch this movie. Like it's not scary, but it's very aggressive. And the thing that the first time I watched it, one, there's a lot of aggressive lighting and camera tricks. And so especially if you have seizures, I don't have seizures, but there's a lot of flashing lights and I can imagine it might trigger something. So be careful when you watch this movie because there wasn't like a trigger warning or anything, but I feel like it could trigger like seizures. Maybe. I don't know anything about seizures, but it's a lot. And I actually had a headache after I watched it, and I couldn't figure out if it was the movie or just because I had a headache. I enjoyed the ride of the movie the first time. Yeah. It was like a scary roller coaster. It was just, what the hell is going to happen next? What's going on? And that's what, and the filmmaking, because the bigger thing in this movie, and it's kind of a gimmick, but it's a well done gimmick, and it's a gimmick that works. If you didn't know about it, you would still think the movie's cool because of how it looks. There's a 42-minute long take. It puts Birdman to shame on long takes. Like, pretty much the second half of the movie is all one take. And it's really amazing how they did that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was cool that they had dancers in the cast, which it's such a choreographed dance of a movie that it makes it run very smoothly. And I think it actually adds to it, where I would think if you are a dancer and you're an adult, because there is nudity and there is violence in this movie, I would highly recommend it. If you like anything different, I would say it's worth the experience. But like, if it's getting too anxiety driven, I'm going to give it a Resident Evil 7 warning and say, turn it off and walk away if you need to take a minute.
If you wanted to, I mean, I normally wouldn't say this, but you'll come across movie lists that even they're like, great movies, you can watch the first scene and then you're done. So if you really want to see like really cool choreographed dancing, that's like this really long cut. I think the opening scene lasts like 10 minutes, and there's all these dancers. Yeah. It's almost like it's the final dance before they're kind of letting their hair hang down. So if you want to see like that part, that'd be really, really cool. Turn into like the first 15, 20 minutes.
So, so I'm going to get into characters too. There's so many characters in this movie. Like, I was mixing up people left and right. I don't know if you were.
There's a lot of really pretty thin brunettes with long hair that I had to be like, okay, that's this brunette and that's this brunette. Like,
yeah, there's also a bunch of dudes that are all in black t-shirts and hats, and they're slightly different hats, but all the hats are the same color. It's a dance, so they're all in coordinated outfits, so they look coordinated. But it was just like, there were so many girls in red tops that tied and skirts, and I was just like, what the hell's happening? But I think the main people you need to know is Selva, who's Sophia Batella.
Yeah, I think it's Batella, but Batella may be right too.
I've heard it said both ways, and she was infamously in that terrible Mummy remake with Tom Cruise, which I did watch. It's as bad as people said it was. It's not good. It's not a good movie. I will take the Brendan Fraser Mummy any day over that. But I don't particularly think of her as a good actress because because that's the main thing I've seen her in. But I think she did a really good job, and she does have 15 years of dance experience. So she grew up dancing and then started acting. So like, pretty much everybody has dance experience, which makes sense in this movie. So there's Selva. She's the main choreographer, and basically everyone wants to sleep with her. Like, everyone keeps talking about, like, I want to sleep with Selva. I want to sleep with Selva. I slept with Selva. It's very weird. And then there's David, who's a male dancer. He's the guy wearing, like, the Adidas tracksuit the whole time. And he really likes Selva and sleeps with her the night before. And then he just keeps aggressively pursuing her. And then there's Lou, who honestly was the most sympathetic character, in my opinion. And she's my favorite. She had the ponytail. She was a really tall brunette white girl with the ponytail.
She has the ribbon too.
Yes, I wrote that too. She has the ribbon at the beginning. She's ribbon dancing in the big dance. Yeah. She's really good friends with Selva and Emmanuel, who is the manager of the dance troupe, and she is unexpectedly and unplanned pregnant. And that turns into a thing. She's the girl at the beginning that says dance is everything. And she's the girl who runs out in the first scene of the movie. And then there's Daddy, who's like the really tall black dude. He's very he's imposing looking. Like, he's a very tall guy, but he's very approachable and sweet. And I don't know.
I like him because I was like, Daddy is one of the only ones I remember because I'm like, look at him tearing up the floor in a kilt. He's wearing a kilt.
He's wearing a kilt. I didn't notice the kilt the first time, and the second time I was like, oh, he was wearing it I thought he put it on in the middle of the movie, because at the end he's wearing a kilt, and I was very confused until I rewatched it. I like Daddy. He was really cool, and I was very like, oh, he's so cute. And then we already said Emmanuel, who she used to be a dancer, and she got pregnant and had her little boy Tito, who's there with them, and now she's managing the troupe. And then her son Tito's there. And it seems like Lou and Selva and Emmanuel and Daddy have all known each other for a long time. Like, they've been in the troupe for a while, and everybody else is kind of, like, newer. And then I don't want to get into too many people because then we'll be talking forever. But I do want to mention Ivana and Psyche, who they are a couple. They're both blonde ladies. Like, one is, like, shorter, and she's, like, bleach blonde curly hair, like, and she seems pretty normal. And then Psyche is my least favorite character. And she's from Berlin, and she is really short. She has the weirdest haircut. Like, I'm sorry to that dancer, but she has a weird haircut. Am I crazy?
It's very and of course I don't know if this is something with the movie being like set in like the mid 90s too, but the haircut's very 90s, very like almost, I don't want to say R&B, but almost like you could just see any 90s pop star having that haircut and dye job, maybe.
Yeah, that she almost looked like she was trying to be like a tough Rachel Lee Cook, and She's All That. Like, it's like, but it's an even shorter, like, blunt bob. Like, she looks like she should be on the cover of Delia's. And she has, like, bleach blonde hair. And, like, basically, she just wants to have fun the whole time. And her girlfriend, Ivana, is like, hey, pay attention to me. And she won't. And she's kind of a bitch. She's also, like, always just in a bikini the whole time. She's the bikini girl, Psyche. And then, really, the only other two people.
I wanted to point out, because you mentioned Psyche. Did you read that Psyche actually her dialogue was the only dialogue scripted in the whole film?
Oh, I didn't read that.
Yeah, it's so of course the movie begins even before the opening dance scene. There's some interviews. And it kind of gives you an idea of all the characters, like really quick ideas, because each end of the interview is like intercut, and they're like maybe 30 seconds each. But Psyche actually mentions at the very beginning that she moved away from Berlin because her roommate was doing drugs. And she said something to the point of, like, he was even putting acid in his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Which
she's like, I don't like drugs.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess let's start talking about the plot, because there's other characters too, but I don't want to get in. I still have 2 pages of characters to get through. We'll never. We're already at 36 minutes. We've been talking about characters for like 10 minutes. So, anyways, I don't know. Let's go into what we liked. I liked the visual stuff and the long takes, and how it kind of they did a really unique thing where, like, we saw Midsummer where there's a lot of drug use. And in Midsummer, they tried to represent visually what the characters doing the drugs were feeling. But this movie is completely opposite, where it takes the drug use and it puts you in the place of someone who was experiencing it but isn't doing the drugs. And personally, I have a personal experience. So, like, I was having, like, flashbacks. It wasn't dangerous. Nobody did anything to me, but it was just really uncomfortable. And that's what this movie made me feel like. And I do think it's a true cinematic experience. And I really was impressed with the camera work, especially, like, they do a lot of, like, moving upside down, spinning camera work, where the camera will go upside down when it gets really bad, and then it'll go right side up when everything gets back to normal. And I really liked that. And I really, really liked that the ensemble cast was very fearless. Like, there's a scene where where Selva goes into this room with a, like, weird forest wallpaper, and she just goes flipping nuts and just starts, like, ripping curtains down. It's very much like, and I haven't seen all the movie, but I've seen the scene. There's this scene in the movie Possession where this woman has, like, an emotional breakdown in a subway station. And that's, like, he was inspired by this, but she just went, like, she was so fearless. Everybody was fearless in this movie. And even though, like, most of them aren't actors, they were very believable. And I was, I thought it was very believable. What did you like about it, Brittany? And then we'll go to negatives too.
So I will say Silva's whole trip, which is kind of probably about halfway through the movie. The whole cast did a great job. And, like, we've talked about many times is that they're not actors, they're dancers. So for them to take on such roles and to just throw themselves into it is very impressive. But you definitely got with Sophia Portela as Silva. I feel like you definitely got the experience with her because she's kind of like the lead character. They never explicitly say that, but you follow her probably more than any of the other characters. Something I actually heard. I'm one of those people. My mind. I don't know if you ever heard this. So like, you ever read a short story and it's like, oh, like the door is red to represent the passion, or the door is red to do this, and then the writer is like, I just like the color red. It's a red door, and so my mind.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
My mind, the way I think, I crave analyzation and trying to figure out the deeper meaning of what's going on. And Noah Gap, the director, he's not really like that. He didn't, because there's even like a French flag in the movie, and they're like, oh, are you making a commentary on French politics? And he's like, no, we just so happen to have a French flag, and that's But going back to Silva, this dance scene is just incredible. But it's uncomfortable too, because you see the lights and it's always either red or green, and so and both colors are very sickening to me in the way they're lit. There's always this pulsating kind of techno. It just does not let you up, and that girl just runs with it. And I didn't know this, but I heard someone mention this. So Silva is actually the name of the director's grandmother, and it means. Yeah.
He also named the baby in love after himself. So I wonder if he does that in every movie.
Well, her name means forest. And when she's having that breakdown, she sees the forest and she calms. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Oh, wait, that scene, the other thing I liked was when she puts her hand in her pantyhose. Not sexually, she just puts both of her arms in her like tights she's wearing. Yeah. And then it was a very realistic, like, drugged person freak out moment, because then she can't move her arms because they're stuck inside her clothes, but she doesn't, like, because her brain's not working right, she can't remember why she can't take out her arms, and she starts flipping out. She just starts, like, and I was waiting for her to, like, rip her tights, but she doesn't. Yeah. But there was, like, a lot of that, and she also would, like, grab things to hold balance, even though she was fine. Because when you're that high, or that, I don't know about high, but I know, like, if you're that drunk, sometimes you do end up holding on to stuff.
And I can't, the thing I just said, I can't take credit for. That was just me, like, desperately being like, there has to be something deeper for this movie. They're just not all fucked up. That's not the point of this movie. And so there was this brilliant guy on YouTube that actually said that. And I was like, I love it. There's, like, something for me to kind of latch onto in the middle of all this craziness. But he brought up, it's funny you brought up the scene of the pantyhose, like, and he said the reason that is because she believes her arms are under her flesh, and she can't get her arms out under her flesh, which is really cool. So that being said, what I kind of like about this movie is because it's definitely a visual experience you would not normally get from your run-of-the-mill movie. Like, it's not something you see very often in film, and I think that's very exhilarating filmmaking, for sure.
And I think that's the main point, and I wouldn't usually tell people to see a movie just because of how it looks or how it feels, but this movie, it is like a roller coaster, and I do like it. But, I mean, I would say some negative points, if we want to get into negative stuff. I do think, so they had a 5-page script, and I think basically they had Psyche's lines, and basically, like, they kind of had an outline of what's going to happen, but they let people make things up. And how involved the character was seems to be dependent on how imaginative the actor was, because you don't see all of the dancers in the first scene where they're interviewing them. You see, like, a lot of them, but some of them I could not figure out if they had an interview scene, and I could have just missed something, but I couldn't figure out if they all were. So I feel like they had some people that just were like, I don't know, like, because he didn't give them a backstory. So basically the people with good backstories were people that were imaginative. So some of the dialogue kind of suffered in, like, the improv party talking scene. Like, some of it made a lot of sense. Like, so basically you've got the beginning part where they're interviewing everybody, and you're watching it on a TV and there's a bunch of VHS tapes, which are like his like, what am I trying to say?
Inspiration.
Thank you. Yes, his inspiration. And sorry, I have a sucker because my throat was really dry and I'm out of Red Bull. So, um, so you see the interview part, and that part most people made sense. But then there's the dance scene that's like 10 minutes, and that's really good. Like, it's all choreographed. Like, it's one take. It's really cool. And then they start having their party, because it's like they're having like a cast party or whatever. And they start, this is the only part that's really edited in a not one shot, besides the beginning and the end. And they start like just taping groups of people having discussions. And like the one with Lou and what's her name? Selva. They're talking about like the fact that Emmanuel, who has the little boy, Tito, they're talking about how she made the right decision not having an abortion because she's done a really good job being a good mother to him. And then Lou like asks Selva, well, have you had an abortion? And Selva's just like, she doesn't really give her an answer. She's like, I mean, I think it's good to have the option. And, later on you find out that Lou is pregnant and isn't sure if she wants to have the baby or not. So like that made sense. Those two actresses did their homework and were trying to bring something of meaning to the story. And I think he must have talked with them, because he has all these like quotes because by the way, which we haven't mentioned, the movie and the credits are all backwards, which is very confusing when you start this movie. They have the end credits at the beginning. Like, you have one shot of Lou running out into the snow screaming, and it's like then they Tarantino it after they give you the end credits, and then you start at the beginning. And then in the middle of the, like, when they're dancing at the party, but they haven't discovered the LSD yet, they just show everybody's names, and they don't even say who's an actor, who's a producer.
And I want to mention, for people who may be listening who haven't seen a lot of French movies, that is not something common in French movies. So it's not like,
this is just Gaspar Noe.
Yeah, so it's not like, oh, this is just a French thing. No, this is not normal. So
no, it's not normal. Oh, and then the title isn't even shown until the last 8 seconds of the movie. But so he also has these quotes. It's like, birth is an experience, death is an experience, and life is an experience. So I think he does have some kind of deeper meaning, because there is this whole subplot of Lou's trying to figure out if she wants to have her baby. Emmanuel's trying to protect her child from what's happening. And then Rocco has a conversation with Lou about his ex-girlfriend. He wants to be with her because he's in love with her, but he can't get back together with her because she's pregnant with somebody else's baby. So like Lou's having all these conversations, and it kind of reminds me, if you've ever been in a situation where like you're going through something in your life. I've been in that situation where like I was going through like something in my life, but I didn't want to tell people, but I would like bring up subjects around it so I could get advice. It's a very human thing, but I liked that aspect. There's a lot of stuff about life and parenthood, kind of vaguely.
Yeah.
It gave it some kind of a deeper meaning. I do think a lot of the being negative, I know I just went on a tangent, but the negative part about it was like some of the scenes in the party, like the two dudes that were just talking about anal sex. Seemed just like he didn't give them any direction. It was just like, this is hilarious. It's really funny. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I don't like it. That was actually one of my least favorite parts too. I think it tries, I don't know, I feel like it was trying too hard to set these guys up in a certain way. And I think that's a very nihilist and misanthropic way to look at life, which I think is actually, I think it's a running theme in his movies, that maybe, and even in Climax, like when you go to your high and your internal animal instincts is to beat the shit out of each other, rape each other, try to have sex with your sister. That's the kind of stuff that I'm just like, I like to think if I was high, I'd be the girl just dancing for 13 hours straight. I
But
mean,
then she was the bad one.
exactly.
She ended up being the bad one. But yeah. So and now that we're in spoilers, so Psyche's presumably the person who spiked everybody's drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
very strongly applied.
I mean, she was kind of a bitch from the beginning because she's so rude to her girlfriend. Her girlfriend is a little needy, but isn't like really rude. She's just like, why won't you pay attention to me? She's like, because you're boring. And I'm like, what a bitch. And then it ends up she is a bitch. Oh, I mean, they don't complete. I do like that they don't completely tell you, but they strongly imply it. So it's pretty obvious, but they don't hit you over the head with it. But the thing you mentioned about the brother and sister and the little accidental love triangle that happens. So, sorry, I went on a tangent and I probably had to edit it out because I was trying to clarify something with Brittany. But so basically, so there's Taylor and Gazelle, who are a brother and sister dance duo. And those actors did a good job too, because they did kind of make it a little weird in the beginning because there's some tension there. Like the brother's like, yeah, we've never been to America. We can't wait to go. And the sister's like, I've been to New York. And he's like, well, we've never been together and we're close. We're close siblings. And she's just like, and then you find out that Gazelle's been dating like a mutual friend, Omar, who's also in the dance troupe, who doesn't drink. And he seems like a really nice person, but the brother just doesn't, he thinks he's stuck up because he's kind of weird around the brother. And there's this weird tension. And then everybody assumes that because he didn't drink the alcohol, because he doesn't drink alcohol, he spiked the punch and they throw him into the snow. And that was really sad.
And I don't remember explicitly this being said, but I read somewhere, I was reading in an interview that someone mentioned, they're like, well, Omar is Muslim and he gets thrown out into the snow. Are you trying to say something there? And once again, the director was like, oh, really? Yeah, I didn't think about it. So, I mean, once again, I'm just like, oh, like, that's interesting. And then Gaspar was just like, no, I mean, that's interesting, but that wasn't intentional. So,
okay, wait. So the name Omar is a Muslim. It's found almost exclusively among Sunni Muslims from Arabic personal name of uncertain etymology.
oh, wow.
It is thought to be Arabic, and it means prosperous, full of life, which is funny because he's the first death in the movie.
Yeah. Moments too is at the end of the film, of course, Katie, you can agree with this. At the end of the film, you kind of see where each and every character is at the end of the film, and poor little Omar is just lying frozen to death in the snow, and I'm just like,
right after they say death is like an experience, and then you just see his like frozen little. It's really sad. I felt really bad for him, and I felt really bad for Gazelle because she starts out with a boyfriend and her brother, and then her boyfriend gets tossed out into the snow. And then, like, so basically, when everyone's figuring out that the LSD is happening, it's still one take, but they're basically everybody's in the same room. So it's everybody. And then they start following individual people. So they follow, I wrote the order down because it's so confusing. So, like, Taylor and Gazelle, David comes across them when things start getting crazy, and Taylor has Gazelle up against a wall, and I feel like they both had their pants on, but he's like dry humping her against a wall, and she seems really into it, and then all of a sudden she realizes what's happening, and she starts freaking out. Yeah. And then he's like, don't, like, at the end, he's like, don't tell our dad and stuff, and I was like, because at first I was like, maybe they're not really brother and sister. But then when he's like, don't tell dad, I was like, oh, no, they are. Because I was like, maybe they're just like really close and they just call each other. Like some people are like, we're sisters because we're just so close. Or like we're in a sorority together or something. But no, like there were some incestual things going on.
Which that is actually seems to be because I know we were going to touch upon the director. That seems to be a theme in his films. So there is multiple films that he has where incest is a thing. And so is abuse towards pregnant women, which I'm sure we were going to touch on too. Abuse towards pregnant women happens in at least 3 of his 5 movies. So
he has some demons he needs to conquer. Maybe that's why he does these movies, so he can conquer some demons. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the Taylor, Gazelle, and Omar plot's pretty sad. I think all of those actors did a really good job. Omar is not in a lot of it, but he seemed pretty genuine, and I liked him and Gazelle's chemistry. And I think Gazelle and Taylor were some of the better actors. Oh, and then Gazelle like has a seizure because of the drugs too.
Yeah.
Like, so she just had like the worst night. I feel really bad for her. Boyfriend's dead. Her brother tried to have sex with her, and then she had a seizure. But she survives, and so does he. And she seems to not remember anything in the morning, because he's like, "Don't tell Dad, nothing happened." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "I guess he remembers. That's gonna be awkward." Yeah, Lou is to me the most sympathetic character. Maybe next to Gazelle. I feel really bad for Gazelle too, because she seems like a nice person, and it really was shitty what happened to her. Poor Lou. Nobody knows she's pregnant. She just says, "I don't feel good," so she doesn't drink any of the punch. And then she starts throwing up, and Selva goes and finds her, and she tells her, like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And she's like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" She's like, "I don't know." So she's not really sure if she wants to have the baby or not. She seems very on the fence about it. And I feel...
Since you brought up the baby, I'm so sorry. I want to circle back to something. And I think this movie is great to help, like, clarify things. Because I'm like, so I forgot which character was talking about his girlfriend being pregnant with someone else's baby.
Rocco.
But I thought Rocco and Lou were maybe an item. And she's the one that's
what I thought too the first time I saw it. And the second time, he's actually talking to Lou about a third person. Anyways, so Lou is confiding in her friend, and Dom comes into the room. Bond girl Dom, which I thought was interesting that her name is Dom, and she has a very domineering personality. I don't know if the actress just thought it was a fun name, or if they did it on purpose, but I thought that was interesting. So Dom comes in, and everybody knows they're high at this point. And Dom is having she's a dominant personality, but she doesn't really understand the severity of what she's doing. She comes in, finds out that Lou wasn't drinking, and this is after they throw Omar into the snow. So they've already blamed him for spiking the drinks. But now she's going after Lou, and she's like, "Oh my God, like, you spiked the drink." And then Selva's trying to help her friend out. And again, everyone but Lou and Omar are under the influence of LSD. So she's like, no, she didn't drink because she's pregnant. And then Dom's just like, "I don't believe you." And she like kicks her in the stomach. And like, that was the worst part for me. And I don't know if it was because she was pregnant or just anytime anyone kicks somebody in the stomach, that is like the worst kind of like beat up thing. Like, I can take punches to the face, like, not personally, but I can take watching it on a movie. But there's something so visceral about getting punched in the stomach or getting like kicked in the stomach. You're just so helpless. And then Dom just leaves. And again, she doesn't really understand what she's doing. And then that's when we start following Lou, and Lou like grabs a knife. Oh no, she follows her and she starts asking, like, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" And then Dom just starts turning everybody against Lou. And then at some point, Lou like just starts having a nervous breakdown. And I couldn't figure out, this was what confused me. So she's sitting. I couldn't figure out if she lost the baby and that's why she was bleeding, or if she had cut herself, because she has a knife. You see her cut her arm and her face herself, because everyone's telling her to kill herself, because everyone's in a frenzy because of the LSD and because Dom's turning everyone against her. But she puts her hands like between her legs and she pulls them, and then it goes away from her and she pulls her arms back out and her hands are covered in blood. And I couldn't figure out if she was losing the baby because Dom had kicked her, or if she had like stabbed herself. I didn't know if that was on purpose or just an accident.
And I think it could be either, but I think Dom hits her, kicks her like multiple times in the stomach. So it's not just like once and she walked away. It was like 4 or 5 times. And you see it in real time. Like, that's the big thing about this movie, is that everything's kind of filmed in real time, which makes it really hard to watch too.
I think the saddest thing is probably Emmanuel and Tito. So Emmanuel's, she's a little older than everybody. She's the manager for the dance troupe, and she brought her little boy to the weekend. And they have this really touching scene. Reminded me of Macbeth, the lady Macduff scene with the little boy, where they have this beautiful moment, and then they get murdered. It's kind of like that. She has this beautiful scene where she's like reading him to sleep, and she's just like, "I love you. I'm gonna come up and check on you." And they do a really good foreshadowing where, like, she tells him, no, you don't drink the sangria because it's alcoholic. Don't drink it. And then after everybody's under the influence, he comes back down after going to bed, and you see him drink the cup. And then to protect him, like, honestly, my instinct was you need to lock him in his room. But for some reason, I guess because she's high, she locks him in the electrical closet to keep all the other people away from him. And then she loses the key. And then it goes really downhill from there.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably the worst part. You don't actually see him die. But basically, everything's kind of like a green and yellow light in the beginning. And then while she's looking for the key, he's been screaming behind the door, like, "Mom, mom, mom," like screaming for his mom. And all the lights go out and it's silent. You don't hear him screaming anymore. And then everything's red because it's on the emergency lights. And that's when everything gets really bad, is when presumably Tito has been electrocuted to death. Because she locked him in the electrical closet, but she tells him, like, don't touch anything. But he's like, what, 8? I think he's 8 or 10. Like, he's tiny. So he really didn't know any better. And then the mom is so distraught that she ends up, like, cutting her wrists and killing herself, which you don't really see until the next morning. But that was probably, like, the worst part for me, the saddest part. Next to Lou. It's pretty bad. That's probably the worst part. And then eventually everything goes red, and, like, Selva ends up with Psyche's girlfriend Ivana. They're, like, about to have sex, and then David finds them. And then, we didn't even talk about Riley and Daddy.
I like that scene a lot because there's so much hell. Like, you literally, I feel like this movie is like hell. Like, most of the time you feel like you are in hell, like, watching it. But then you have this just really, and even the lighting's different in that scene because I feel like it's like a purplish lighting, if I'm remembering it correctly. Like, it's just, even the lighting feels different when you're with Riley and Daddy. And, like, Daddy is essentially just comforting Riley. And it's just really, really nice. Like, I don't know. I mean, it was a nice breather in the midst of all the madness happening.
Yeah. And then, so Riley's, like, he is a very young boy. He's apparently very rich, and his family, he says, are very supportive of him becoming a professional dancer, but he doesn't like them to come see him perform. And he's dressed very androgynously, like he's wearing, like, a corset, but then he's also wearing pants. So he's kind of like, he reminds me of, like 90s club culture. Like, he looks like a person that would be in the movie Party Monster or something like that. So he's very young. They don't actually, I don't know if they say exactly what age he is, but probably like 19, maybe 20. And he's very young. And I think 19 is probably as old as he'd be. He looks more like he's like 17. And he, like, kind of talks with Daddy in the beginning, like, "Oh yeah, I'm a virgin, but this week's the week I'm going to have sex with David." And he starts pursuing David. And then David's like, "No, I want to do Selva. I don't want to sleep with you." And so then he gets really crushed about it, and Daddy ends up comforting him about it. And then, like, I don't know if it was implied they were having a romantic relationship or just a friendship, but they end up, like, sleeping in the same bed, and it's very sweet. Like, Daddy's just kind of comforting Riley. And it was kind of a nice little subplot that wasn't, and he kind of stood up for himself too, because then David kind of came after him after Selva's sleeping with Ivana, and then he's like, "Fuck off! Like, you already told me you didn't want to have sex with us." I was like, yes, Riley, you tell him. Like, you go find someone who actually loves you. Like, what a jerk! David is such a jerk, but I kind of feel bad for him because Selva treats him like dirt too. Then when you start following David, everything's red. And everything goes upside down. Also, there's a contortionist in this movie, and I can't remember the character's name. But he's, like, in the background when Selva's fighting with somebody, and he's just, like, doing all these weird contortion things. And I loved it because it was just so disturbing in the background. It's kind of like, you know, like in well, not Hereditary so much as like, have you ever seen I think you've seen The Haunting of Hill House, right?
Oh yeah, love it.
Yeah. So like, if you watch it the second time, you know that there's ghosts in the background of everything. Yeah. So the second time you watch it, you're like, oh my God, there's a ghost in like every other scene just hiding. And they don't like bring attention to it. It's just back there. And that's like the scariest thing to me, is something's there that you never notice. And so like,
it's messing with you subconsciously, because somewhere you're seeing it, but you're not focusing on it. So your mind knows it's there, but you're not visually focusing on it. It's just there, and it really messes with you. It's a great kind of film thing that directors do, for sure.
So like, the guy he's like in the hallway just doing weird arm things and contorting his body, and at some point he's like popping his socket out, and it looks really violent. And he was, I know there's an actual contortionist in the cast, but they didn't actually say the name where I saw it. I assume it's that guy, because like, he was doing things to his body that most people can't do to their body. So,
I wanted to bring up David just because the way my mind kind of works when I'm watching a movie, I try to figure things out, and I think that's the way I've always been. So like David, I'm just like, you look at, he's wearing an Adidas tracksuit. He kind of has like a really close to the head, almost buzz cut. And he kind of has like a very serious face. And so I'm just like, oh yeah, like he's going to be the bad dude. Like he's going to end up raping somebody. Something's going to happen. And then it's just like, he doesn't really have that antagonist moment I was waiting for. And
yeah, I mean, he's just kind of like a jerk. He's not a nice person, but he's not an evil person either. He's kind of a neutral guy. Like, he wants to sleep with Selva. She doesn't want to sleep with him anymore. And he does get upset when he finds her with Ivana, but once she like hugs him and says, no, I don't want to be with you, he just kind of walks out.
Yeah.
So, and then I felt bad because he got beat up, because everyone was like, I can't remember why they started beating him up.
Was he dead? Was he dead at the end? I was kind of wondering if he was dead.
Everything I've read is that he's just passed out, because his eyes were kind of fluttering.
Okay.
So I figured, I don't think he's supposed to be dead. The only people confirmed dead at the end of the movie are Omar, Tito, and Emmanuel. Everybody else might be injured, but they seem to be alive. I feel like we've touched on everything. It did win a Cannes Film Festival award.
Really? What did it win an award for?
It won, in 2018, it won the Art Cinema Award, which makes sense. It's a beautiful work of art. It's visually stunning, although it's assaulting to the senses. But I do think it's worth seeing if you like cinema, but I don't, it's not a movie that I'm like, I'm going to watch this over and over. I hated that I had to watch it twice, honestly. Yeah. Because it's really disturbing, and it's not even, it's just because it's very realistic too, I guess. Yeah. I think that's the main point. But I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, when we talked about Nightingale, we talked about Nightingale as a great movie you'll never watch again. I can't say great for Climax, but I can say this is an interesting movie I'll never watch again.
Yeah, the dance scenes, if you're a dancer and you like modern choreography, I think totally worth seeing that one dance scene at the beginning. And then that's the only thing that was choreographed. By the way, there's only one dance scene that's choreographed, but there's like probably 30 to 40 minutes of just them dancing. Like, everything else, everybody just made up. And that's why it was good for him to hire real dancers, because they can make things up. So I guess anything else we want to contribute? I mean, I think we still have to go with the ratings. Yeah. Anything else though, Brittany, any final thoughts?
Not really. I feel like we touched on a lot of good things. Once again, just kind of coming back to this idea that, I mean, if you are a movie lover, you will not see anything else like Climax. It's film. I think the style they call it now is French extreme, I think, which is like I
can't figure out if that's in the same category, because the first French extremist that I kind of heard of was more of like horror movies like like Martyrs or High Tension.
Yeah.
High Tension is really good, but I finally watched High Tension. It's really good. Although it was spoiled for me, so I won't spoil it for anyone here, but something was spoiled for me before I watched it, so it made it not as good as I think it would have been if I didn't know stuff. Yeah, but I was trying to figure out if it's French extremist or not, because there's some extreme stuff, but it's not super gory. So if like we're gonna rate it on gore, I gave it like a 3 out of 5 because there's stuff that's violent and bloody, but it's not like there is blood, but it's not gratuitous. Like it's not like Evil Dead blood spurting everywhere, like gross Tom Savini kind of stuff. Like it's just kind of like it looks, but it's almost worse because it's very realistic. But there's not like blood. Like at some point somebody's like head hits the ground and like there's no like not a lot of blood, but there is some blood. And like watchability, I gave it a 2. Like can't take my eyes off of it because I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but it is something that kind of catches your attention. And, you know, I would only recommend it to people who like dance or like a cinematic experience. I wouldn't recommend it to just the everyday viewer. Like, I can't imagine like telling everyone at my office to be like, yeah, watch Climax and gore. I guess we should go.
I would definitely say watchability for me is probably a 1.5. I would even say
is that bad one or good one?
No, like I personally don't see a watchability factor to me unless you're just wanting someone to see the sick dancing at the beginning, like sick in a cool way, dancing at the beginning.
Right.
Like I just like it's definitely a movie I would recommend watching once, but I don't really see, I mean, and maybe there's someone out there listening that's like, oh, she has no taste, but like I just don't see this as a movie you can watch multiple times. Like
I think if you're a sane person, you can see why somebody wouldn't want to watch this movie twice. There's a lot of extreme stuff in here. Yeah, I mean, I would say that's how I agree. And like, it's not overly gory, but there is stuff in there that's pretty violent. And I mean, it would very, like, you don't see Tito die, but that's pretty awful when a kid just dies. Like, you don't see it like you see it in Nightingale, but you know what's happening, and it's really awful. And like acting wise, like I feel like the acting was super dependent on the director. Like I feel like if you put all these people, no offense to them, but I'm just saying because they don't have a lot of acting experience, I think the environment led them all to do really good performances. Like I think that they all did a really good job, but I can see like in another director's hands, this would probably turn into a mess. Like if you put it into like who's the guy that does all the Superman movies or the Transformers movies? Michael Bay. Like if Michael Bay tried to direct this movie, it would be a hot mess. Be a hot mess all over the place. But I think with this director, I do think he's weird for the sake of being weird. I think he's a weird director. Like, no offense to him. Like, but I think he's extremely talented, and I wish he would do someone else's work because I would like to see his visual style in other places, like something more accessible to the general public, because I would love to tell people, like, watch this movie by Gaspar Noe. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff in his movies that's just like I can't recommend it for people just because of like sensitivity. So it's hard. It's like like Kubrick did some movies like Eyes Wide Shut. I would not suggest for the general public because there's just whole scenes where just people are just banging in the background, like literally just having sex, and you're just like Tom Cruise just walking through, just like it's just like it's like Climax, you know. But I would suggest like a movie like I wouldn't suggest Clockwork Orange either. That's pretty rough.
I saw Clockwork for the first time when I was 11.
Oh no! I tried to watch it in college, had to turn it off because I was so disturbed by the singing in the rain thing. And then I went back and finished it, and I really liked it. But I was like disturbed. Also, like I was trying to drink a Mike's Hard Lemonade that someone had left at my house after a party, so it was the Mike's Hard Lemonade. I don't know. But like I would suggest most people see The Shining because The Shining's not gratuitous, and I mean there's some violence, but it's not like active violence except for the one scene where like with the axe, like everything else is pretty passive violence. Like you see the result of a violent act, but you don't actually see something happening. Whereas this, you see some of it just happening. And like, I think really the thing that saves this movie is the visuals, though. The visuals and like the fearlessness of the cast are, I mean, I would put it on like a Blade Runner visual. Like, it's really good. Like, it's not pretty like Midsummer, but it is, because it's very assaulting to the senses. It's so many flashing lights and just so crazy. But I do like it. I don't know. And I'm kind of mesmerized by like how well it's made, you know, like how the technical aspects of it alone. I think if you're into movies, if you're into cinema, if you want to become a filmmaker, I think you should definitely watch this, because like it's something people just haven't done before, and I really like it. Again, I would like to see him do something that's more accessible to people, but unless he has a total change of heart in how he likes to make movies, I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say on the production quality is incredible. It's a beautiful film. There's a lot of really cool, interesting things going on, but the actual experience is very rough. Like I think you said, assault on the senses, and I think that describes it perfectly. So
Okay, I guess that's a sign for us to stop talking and finish up. So Brittany, you're picking out the next movie. What are we going to talk about in the next episode?
before we do that, did you want to give your ratings?
Oh, I would give it a 7 out of 10, because I think it's really impressive, but I just can't recommend it to a lot of people. You know? What about you?
I'm going to rate it D for drugs, death, and dancing.
Oh yeah. So I have another one for that. I wrote it down. I did C for catastrophic choreography.
Oh, there we go.
So I like that one. But yeah. So I'd give it a C for catastrophic choreography. What would you give it out of 10?
Oh, you're probably going to hate me. I would have to say it's a hard 6 for me.
That's fine. I only gave it a 7 because I really, really like the dancing, honestly. Like,
yeah.
I feel like the technical aspects are so impressive that I had to give it more than a 6, but I don't want to watch it again, so I couldn't give it an 8. So, I mean, I would say, like, if you say a 5 out of 10, people are going to think it's really okay movie. But the technical aspects are just fantastic, and I wish it was a more watchable, approachable movie, because I would recommend it to more people, but it's just, I don't want to be in people's bad graces by saying, yeah, you should watch Climax. Okay, so Brittany is picking out the movie for next week. What are we going to watch?
Okay, we are turning into Robert Eggers' sophomore movie, The Lighthouse, which is another fantastic A24 film. It is currently available to stream on Amazon Prime, so please.
It just came on last week. I'm so excited. I haven't watched it yet. I was too busy rewatching Climax. But I'm so excited to watch The Lighthouse. If you don't know about The Lighthouse, it was like every film critic I watch and listen to said it was like the best movie of the entire year. It was really popular at all the film festivals in 2019, and then like it didn't get any Oscar nomination. I think maybe it got one Oscar nomination for like a technical aspect.
So it's Robert Pattinson, aka the new Batman. I refuse to
aka Twilight Boy.
Yes, and Robert Pattinson has been so freaking impressive in recent years. He's really outdone himself and done things to pull himself away from being just known as Edward Cullen, and I'm really impressed with him.
My favorite person who's in it is the other person who's in it, who is... William. I was letting you say it.
Yeah, William Dafoe. And I've seen this movie once. I just watched it probably 4 or 5 days ago, and I am stoked to see it a second time, because the second time I will get to watch it with the subtitles on. Which, quick segue, me and my husband usually watch movies together, and the first time he has a hard time he can read subtitles, so if we watch like a foreign film, he'll do the subtitle thing, but he's not very big on them.
Tim isn't either. I've heard that you have to watch it with subtitles. That's what I've heard. So if you're going to watch The Lighthouse, it's on Amazon Prime. If you can, watch it with subtitles because it is a little hard to understand. But I've heard it's really enjoyable. Like, people have seen it multiple times. So, I mean, I think it's supposedly very weird.
Yes, it is. It is a film lover's movie. So if you're one of those people who just loves movies and you take a real enjoyment and kind of being like, what the hell could this all mean? This is going to be the type of movie for you for sure. So
yeah. So The Lighthouse will be next week, and Brittany's going to kind of take point on that one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm really excited because I've been waiting like a year to watch this movie. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so we're going to watch The Lighthouse. And I guess that means that we're going to sign off. Thank you for listening. If you have any movies you want us to watch, please leave them in the comments or shoot us a message. And yeah, any final thoughts, Brittany?
No, I'm really excited. Climax was a trip, and I'm looking forward to next week with The Lighthouse. I think you guys are really gonna like it. Either you're gonna like it because you're gonna like it because you're gonna be like, this was so cool. What does this mean? Or you're gonna be like, what the hell's going on? But it's gonna be a cool ride. So I'm really stoked for us to talk about it.
I mean, I've never seen Willem Dafoe and be bored by him. I've never seen a movie that he's in that I'm bored by. It's kind of like Nicolas Cage, which also they're in some terrible movies together. It's like I'm at least entertained by them. So, but I'm a big Willem Dafoe fan. And Robert Pattinson, I've been waiting to see Good Time, which is another movie he did last year that I heard was really good. So I'm kind of excited to see this. I'd like to do Good Time too, because that's, I think, on Netflix right now or Amazon Prime. It's on one of those, and I heard it's really good. So I think that would be a good one to watch too. Anyways, so we're going to sign off from here. So we'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening. And my sign off is going to be stay safe and go watch the movies, y'all.
Yeah. Bye guys. You stay safe. We look forward to talking with, or we look forward to, I don't know. I hate to say talking with you, but we look forward to you being an audience
talking
again.
At you.
Yeah.
We'll talk at you next time. On the Grindhouse Girls podcast. I keep wanting to say Gilmore Girls podcast. It's not Gilmore Girls. Although I love that show. But we will see you next time. Love you guys. Bye. The Grindhouse Girls podcast is a production by Katie Dale and Brittany Ray and edited by Katie Dale. All music used is royalty-free and will be in our annotations. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please contact us at grindhousegirlspod.com or visit our website at grindhousegirlspod.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.